There are contradictions in your arguments. You say transport has improved since the foundation of the state, yet we don't have enough serviceable cars. Our members attend emergencies in underpowered and under-equipped vehicles every day in all sorts of conditions. In 2009, when the Garda College closed its doors to recruitment, we had 2,814 vehicles in the fleet. By the end of this year, we'll have just 2,238. 1 in 5 will have been withdrawn. 1 in 5 withdrawn. Our members know that local knowledge is one of the most basic tools of our job. This has not been improved by communications, technology or transport. Many of our rural communities cannot be found on a sat-nav, even if we had access to that technology in patrol cars. The most vulnerable in our society don't want to telephone a call centre with information. They'd much prefer to have that interaction with the local guard in their community. That quiet word with their guard, what they're used to. Because the Garda is needed at the heart of every community right around Ireland. Some of the worst, some of the most vicious, some of the biggest crimes have been solved in the smallest Garda stations. The Garda station has always been at the heart of the community. Policing in this country has been from within the community, not imposed on it from outside. It's within how we operate. The closure of the Garda station will change the landscape of policing in Ireland forevermore. To close the Garda station in the community, it re-engineers the genetic code of policing. It will be harder to gather the information that prevention and detection and investigation relies upon. The simple fact of the matter is, we know as members of the Garda Síochána, it will result in crimes becoming more difficult and harder to solve. That's the bottom line. There is a palpable fear within both urban and rural areas, and indeed the presence of the local guard is vital to protect the most vulnerable and to reassure the public. That's our job, that's our duty, that's what we're there for. Crime increases when police numbers decrease. Crime increases in a recession. And crime increases when police morale is lowered. We would be defying the experience from around the world if crime in Ireland were truly decreasing. It isn't. Burglary has increased in the worst cases and soared by over 40% in Meath, 32% in Laois Offaly, up 30% in Sligo Leitrim. Do these figures send alarm bells ringing in your department, Minister? Probably not, because you'd prefer not to hear them. That annoying sound. You say we've no money. You say we can no longer afford to have a small building designated as a Garda station in our communities. The closing of the Garda station is not going to save a huge amount of money. It's becoming increasingly apparent that the closure of Garda stations has not been properly thought through. And the consequence of removing Garda members from their communities has not been adequately examined. The vacuum created will become a safe breeding ground for a new generation of criminal activity. Will these areas become your lawless badlands when we close the Garda station? I know you've asked the Garda Commissioner for his plans on station closures, but politically, you're well aware that decreasing Garda numbers places an onus on Garda management to bring every available Garda into district or divisional headquarters. These numbers are needed to satisfy the policing plans. Yet, you've backtracked on your promises of 2007. You're overseeing our retreat, or withdrawal from the heart of the community. The public will be outraged when their local Garda no longer opens the small station in the village, or the members of the local urban station where they're going to be redeployed to the larger district or central headquarters. Then, when that happens, it'll be too late. 90 years ago, Michael Staines led the new force into Dublin Castle to take control from the British Army. Later, I'll be asking the Garda Commissioner if he wants to be remembered for leading the Garda retreat from rural Ireland. In the 1960s, Todd Andrews tore up the railways in much the same way as your department plans to sanction further destruction of the Garda network. Once it's gone, it is gone forever. Is this how you want to be remembered? As the minister who encouraged the dismantling of Garda stations and the creator of lawless badlands? Only last week, Minister, you addressed the European Conference on the rights of victims of crime. You painted a picture of two hypothetical situations at either end of the spectrum. You outlined the difference between an individual who can merely grumble at the experience of crime to those whose very identities will be defined by the experience forevermore. You were telling Europe that you understood the impact of crime on victims of crime. You spoke of the different measures needed to protect both types of people when they become the victims of that crime. But you failed to mention the impact of reduced Garda services, station closures, and budget restraints that are reshaping the way we police here in Ireland. It is naive and reckless, Minister, to sever our deep connection with the community and say we can survive the cuts with intelligence-led policing and efficiencies. Intelligence-led policing requires surveillance resources that are currently limited. The reduction of burglary and road traffic offences requires Garda checkpoints to prevent the free movement of criminals and to place a deterrent on those whom drive under the influence of drink and drugs. This is the real world. This is the real world for us, not the fantasy world of hypothetical balance sheets. And Garda Síochána is not a business to be streamlined. It is a vital service that gives basic human rights to the vulnerable, provides security to the law-abiding, and enforces our democratic principles. This association demands that you do not continue to dismantle all of the good work that our members and their predecessors have achieved over 90 years of hard work, blood, sweat and tears. We at the front line of policing see a different Ireland to that seen in the Central Statistics Office or through opinion polls. We see what many would prefer not to see. We're workers who know our job, and through our input into the transformation agenda under Croke Park, we have demonstrated we have the capacity to fulfil the requirements of modern Ireland. Our members have never been found wanting through the country's most turbulent and difficult troubled years. The economists say the wages of workers in the public sector, they see them and view them only as a burden upon the state. It's easy to attack Garda pay, but would the economist put on an anti-step vest and venture into the unknown, where a split-second decision may make the difference between life and death? Minister, it's remarkable that you continue to recruit members for the Permanent Defence Forces. Is Ireland under attack? Is there a war we're about to join? Because we're under attack in the war on crime right here at home in Ireland. On Garda Síochána needs recruits. We're the only country in Europe with no police officers in training. Only one in Europe. It's time you reverse some of your decisions. Reverse the policy of station closures and reverse the freeze on recruitment and properly support us to reduce crime, to reduce the causes of crime and tackle the proceeds of crime. Minister, I ask you to rethink your policy on policing in Ireland. We need to start recruitment and send a clear signal that Ireland has turned the corner and that Ireland is tough on crime. Policing is an investment. It's not an expense. Minister, I invite you to address our delegates.